But at some point, the math is the math.
I think we can do a better job using that information.
It reinforces my belief that I have the best constituents. Hello. Let me get my... We like that one or we like this one? I like that one right now. Hello, Austin. Hello, District 6. What a week. What a week. Last night we had our council meeting. When I can't remember we finished. It was like 10-ish. Mostly public testimony. Again, mostly public testimony. Did a lot of great stuff, including the things at the end, and we'll primarily be talking about the justice reforms that we pulled together. I'll have Kathy Mitchell's coming on the show, who's been very involved in the advocacy on these issues. And then our musical guest is Jackie Vinson, who herself has been putting out some important words on that, and will share with us her amazing music. But as I have been doing, and I think is important to do, I want to start by talking about our baffling public health crisis that we are in right now. So let me start with this. So as you all know, if you're a clawbacker, if you're a fan of the show, then you know that this is the city's website for all COVID information, austintexas.gov/COVID-19. And you can go here and see, you can see right at the top there is the self-assessment. So if you need to get tested, if you attended any of the protests that have been going on, then you are eligible to get tested. And you can go onto this website and sign up for that. The other thing that is important to show, so I flip over to my other screen, here's the latest dashboard. This, again, for everyone's reminder, this is Travis County plus the Austin part of Williamson County. So it is all of Travis County plus the Austin part of Williamson County. Very important for our D6ers. I, of course, live in the Austin part of Williamson County, so it's very important to me too. Check out that new cases reported chart. That is scary. It's a scary thing. They had to make the y-axis bigger. That's the jump that we're experiencing. And it is important to note that all the medical experts and the epidemiologists and all the folks, they make it very clear that the new cases is a trailing indicator, if that's the right phrase. People contract the virus and then it incubates for a while before symptoms are shown. And not everyone is just getting tested unless they think they've been exposed. So there's going to be a lot of accusation that new cases are related to the protest. There's not really any evidence of that, although I wouldn't be surprised if there was spread coming from the protests. A lot of folks, when I went on Friday night, I went last Friday and Sunday, everyone was trying masks and all that. But there were still moments, and it was, it's just kind of emotional, and you want to be in the middle of it, and it's hard. But this is a scary situation. The weekly hospitalizations still disproportionately affecting the Hispanic community in our city. That is very problematic. There's a lot of initiatives being set up and pushed out around that, making sure not just stuff in dual language, that's the easy part, but really doing the deep community engagement that's required to build trust with public health professionals. The folks that watch this show, I imagine, are mostly the choir and the people who hate the choir. We see you. Don't think you don't know. Don't think I don't know you're out there. But so it's not hard to imagine that there might be people who don't have trust in government, and they're skeptical when a government official comes up and talk to them. And so even if it's a medical professional, even if it's a test, and we have to be very intentional about how we engage communities all across the city who have very different histories and relationships with City Hall, and make sure that we're doing everything we can to address this pandemic. But this is the scary one. Yesterday, or I guess this was yesterday's number, so maybe it was Wednesday or whatever the last day this number was. I've highlighted it. 23 people entered the hospital because of COVID on one day. And that is bad. This chart here, the stages 1 through 5, this is how cities, at least Austin and I think others, are measuring the response generally to the pandemic. And what all the researchers say, and these are not city staff researchers, this is UT epidemiologists who have been really gracious and helpful, engaging with the city and providing their expertise. They say, if we cross 20 as a 7-day moving average, not 1 day, but 7 day, if we cross 20, we are headed towards a very dangerous situation. And you can see here on the end of the chart, that is a headed type of line graph. Of course, the governor has taken away the city's power to enforce any additional responses. And so at this point, we're going to be putting out the information. We'll continue to put out the information and continue to try to educate the public on this is not going away. And we're going to spend most of this show talking about police reform and the questions about defunding and the protests and all the things. And it's taken up all the media space, reasonably so. It's a big deal, and it happened really fast. Well, I should say, like, the media attention and the protests seem to happen really fast. The folks who have been doing this work, they've been doing it for a while. Nonetheless, this is just very important. I don't want to fearmonger, because I think that might turn off ears when we really need to be listening. We just have to keep taking care of each other. Masks, hand washing, cocooning folks who are most at risk, seniors and folks with complicating medical issues. And I cannot stress enough how important that part is. When they do the projections, it says, well, if we get to this point, then it's like, ooh, this whole curve does this whole thing. I'm going to take the thing down because I think you get it. I think you get it. When we talk about the hospitalizations number, it matters. It matters because there's effectively a finite resource of hospital capacity, hospital beds and ventilators and stuff, hospital capacity. If we start reaching that finite resource, if we start bumping up against that finite resource, then anyone who goes to the hospital for any reason is going to start to see a degradation of their care. It gets really dangerous. And what the experts say, medical and epidemiologists, et cetera, what they say is it's not so much anyone getting into the hospital, but those who are most at risk, over 60, over 65, complicated medical issues, those are the ones most likely to end up in the hospital with their infection, which is what complicates the community response. So we really have to protect those folks. I mean, really. And it's a challenge, right? Because I also hear from business owners, and I hear from folks who are really struggling, and folks who have spent a long time building businesses that are well respected and valued, that do important work, that provide jobs and generate tax revenue, and they just don't know what to do. They don't know how to proceed. And as much as Mayor Adler and the council are trying to work with the experts and provide guidance and leadership, the governor has really taken away a lot of the tools, and I think we might be seeing some pretty bad effects of that reality. The other thing that I hear from some folks is that we're too concerned about the spread of the virus, that we have to get to this herd immunity. We got to get to this herd immunity. And sometimes people cite Sweden, but I encourage you, if you're citing a Sweden article, check the date, find a recent article, find a new one. The narrative has definitely changed in Sweden. They're it's not that there's no truth to herd immunity. It's ultimately that the folks who are most at risk, seniors and kind of immunocompromised and others, they're the ones that can't survive a herd immunity. So we just have to keep working through this, and we have to keep talking about how to reopen businesses in a safe way and how to be customers in a safe way. And we got to talk about our friends and neighbors who just aren't paying attention or who think this is some kind of conspiracy. I just can't. Pandemics are not partisan. We cannot treat them that way. People are going to die. People are dying. And we have to be really clear and provide care to our entire community. It's a crazy time, and we keep saying it, but it just because it's a crazy time is no excuse to act crazy. We need cooler heads. The other thing that we did in the council meeting, I've told you all before, I've been working on with Councilmember Alter as a co-sponsor and Councilmember Harper Madison and Councilmember Ellis, additional support for small business and nonprofits and childcare. We created multiple funds, but specifically the Clear Fund for small business and the Anchor Fund, which was a project from Councilmember Alter, the Anchor Fund for nonprofit support. We signed the contract with the Better Business Bureau this week, or at least the council approved the contract with the Better Business Bureau to start working through that process and getting folks the support they need to try and get through this pandemic. So I'm really proud of that work. It's going to be millions of dollars that will get into this community, funded through the federal CARES Act. So we are trying to leverage those federal resources as much as we can, get help out into the community. Stay tuned. If you are a small business owner or a nonprofit, you can stay tuned to, for the small businesses at least, coaloans.com, coaloans.com. Generally, atxrecovers.com for anybody that is having their own economic issues and are looking for the slate of supportive programs. atxrecovers.com, which includes some of the RISE stuff that the Mayor Pro Tem Garza and others have led on, that helps with individuals. We're really trying to do as much as we can, and despite all of the other stuff that keeps showing up on our agenda. And please keep communicating, because given all of the stuff that's this, you can imagine that my email inbox is like a tornado of information. And if I was the IT guy at the city, I would be putting extra air conditioners in the data center, because those servers are hot based on the number of emails that we're getting right now. And I'm here for it. I love it. My staff and I are trying to respond to every D6er we can identify. So please keep up the emails, keep up the advocacy, keep up the communication on all the issues. But I want to now pivot. I want to talk to Kathy Mitchell. Bring on Kathy Mitchell to the show. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Thank you. There's a lot to say, and there's a lot that is hard to say. Why don't we just start kind of from the beginning? Why don't you tell folks kind of who you are and what your group is and kind of your place in the advocacy world?
Sure. So I work for a group called Just Liberty. We are a truly bipartisan. We are a mix of Republicans and Democrats, and we have been working on criminal justice reform, mostly at the legislature, for the last 4 years. We're a fairly new organization. Before that, I worked for a group called the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition. They're kind of a standard policy group on criminal justice. Before that, actually, I had an entire career with Consumer Reports, doing completely other stuff. But I had a volunteer life where I was the policy chair for the ACLU of Texas on a lot of these exact same issues. So I've been doing this here in Austin and I'm also on the steering committee of a group called Texans for Accountable Government, where a lot of my more conservative friends and mix it up with my more liberal friends. I love them, and they have actually sprouted a lot of important work. I work a lot with a woman named Heather Fazio, who also started out at Texans for Accountable Government and is now doing some of the state's leading work on marijuana and how we should handle marijuana in our criminal justice system. So that's a little background on me. I guess
that's amazing, Kat. I mean, that's like a big, broad set of efforts, and thank you for being such a public advocate. It's very much appreciated, and I'm glad to have had the honor to kind of work with you and talk to you on issues that are happening at the city level for a while, and especially in this moment. Although I'm starting to hate calling it a moment because it makes it sound like at some point it ends.
Yeah, really not time for that yet.
or ever, right?
Like this is the beginning.
This is absolutely the beginning, and we'll talk about the items that were on the council agenda last night that we approved. But let's talk about what's behind me here.
Right.
And you are close with some of the amazing Black and Brown community leaders that led on these marches and protests. I don't even know the question to ask you on what the process and the meaning and all of this.
So I think maybe what you're reaching for is something that I've thought a lot about, because up until a few years ago, it was a lonely slog working on anything related to police accountability. Not just here, at the legislature, everywhere else. You could not find a Democrat willing to stick their head out of the sand. I'm going to be very frank about that. And you really only had a handful of Republicans coming from kind of the libertarian side, willing to speak to principle. The civil rights groups from, the 3 decades ago were kind of no longer really reaching the new, younger audiences that you need to be effective. And then Ferguson. And at that moment, a very important thing happened, which was a real revitalization of how we think about civil rights and justice. And it was driven by young people. It was driven by a whole generation who wanted to learn from the lessons of the past, but also wanted to really be different, really take a different tone, be who they are, which is a very different generation from mine and frankly yours. And they wanted to, kind of make their own way. So the Austin Justice Coalition was a group that arose in the Ferguson protests of a few years back. They were the lead organization where we were seeing thousands of people gather at some of the parks on the east side and downtown and at the Capitol. And that moment had a moment kind of like this moment, where after all the protests and after all the noise, there was a moment of implementing something. Some things could be done. We had broken through enough to create a path. And I joined Austin Justice Coalition kind of at the early point during when they were holding these massive protests. Just like anyone else, I just started showing up at their protests. And I was amazed at the vibrancy, the energy, the focus, the leadership, and I just wanted to be part of it. So at that moment, the opportunities were less than they are now, to be perfectly honest. But AJC pushed really hard. De-escalation was not a new concept by any stretch, but it was certainly new to the people in our police department, who are all the same people that we have now. They insisted that they were training in it, but you couldn't really see any results. And so there was a policy of de-escalation that AJC advocated for, did not get everything it wanted or needed, but it was a step in the right direction. And there were a number of other things like that. A lot of dialogue opened. And then, unfortunately, a couple of years down the road, with a lot of new, vibrant organizations doing all the work, and it's still a slog, it's always hard. The police unions will oppose everything. So you had Measure, who are awesome. You had AJC, who are awesome. You had some organizations like Just Liberty and Texas Criminal Justice Coalition and some other kind of standard nonprofit groups that were all kind of pitching in to do policy development. But we started to see real resistance from APD. And interestingly, about a week before the shooting of Mike Ramos, a large group that included almost all of the organizations that have been working on this stuff here in Austin for the past 2 or 3 years, basically all co-signed a letter to the city that said, progress is ground to a halt. We're backing out. We're done. And we have to get new leadership and a real commitment to change. And then Mike Ramos was shot. And then George Floyd. And here we are.
Thank you. I think it's really important to remember the long path this work has taken. A path that had only become visible to me really during the police contract negotiations that the city did, that I was very involved in, and as you know, made the motion to both deny the contract and then a year later approve the contract. It was really, really important work. And I do this show and I try to keep it serious, but then I'm like, I think my collar's turned up. I need to reset the thing. Jeez. I don't know. You got to keep it light. Like, you laugh or cry. Those are the options. That's kind of what I say.
That's right.
And a lot of the contract stuff was driven by a lot of factors. I'll just put it that way. And there was definitely improvement made in oversight and discipline and transparency. And we've got now Farrah Muscadine as our Office of Police Oversight. And we made some pretty significant changes on the finances and saved the city a ton of money. And it was really good work.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all the work.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Kathy, this moment popped into my head and I can't remember what year it was, if it was last year or the year before, or which advocates it was with. But there was a meeting in my office talking about the budget. And a group of advocates came in and was advocating to cut the police department budget. They wanted to see it reduced. And I didn't hear them. I didn't listen to what they were saying in that moment. And I have a lot of feelings about that now. And it's not a mistake I'm making again. But it is so easy to dismiss for some folks who don't have, who aren't steeped in the experiences of everyone in this community. and know who could be besides the people who are experiencing them. The deeper conversation that is now so necessary, and now that in many ways I will be leading as the chair of the Public Safety Committee. I'm having my staff go back and dig that out of my calendar, and if you happen to know who that was with or what meeting it was, you're in a lot of meetings. I'm in a lot of meetings. I want to go back to those advocates and apologize to them because I didn't listen the way I needed to, and I think all of us have to be holding ourselves accountable and be honest with each other about that we're doing it.
Well, I would say, and yes, and we're at a moment where it's taken really lifting this to a national conversation for people to hear something that, frankly, we've been able to sort of demonstrate in charts and graphs for many, many years, and that is that this thing that we built, this 40% of general revenue devoted to policing, it didn't happen overnight. It happened initially in response to the spike in crime that was a real thing that occurred in the late 80s and ended at the late 80s, early 90s, depending on exactly where you live. There was a moment when the spike in crime dropped back precipitously, and police departments continued to grow and grow and grow, and crime dropped and dropped, and police departments grew and grew, and there was an increasing gap between the level of crime that was the reason that we built out these big police departments in the first place, and the level of policing that we continued to build out. So realistically, there was a period, and we're starting to claw that back now, but there was a period where officers had. I
was pointing to my logo.
Oh, claw that back. That's right. So there was a period where officers just did more and more non-crime stuff. We had a lot of officers every budget cycle because of the mindset, and it was bipartisan, and it was a collaborative thing in every city, no matter who was in charge. Every session, the police department got bigger, crime continued to drop. Police actually were the only people who had some time and could go do the stuff that nobody else was funded to do. And they've said that. That's not a new thing now. We've kind of seen that that's how it plays out. In addition, and this is where the degree to which trust from the Black and brown communities, has become a chasm, is that also during that time, you had the vast dissemination of the concept of broken windows policing. In broken windows policing in New York, officers are walking around frisking people with no probable cause. In broken windows in Texas, officers are stopping Black and brown drivers because we don't walk around in the heat, right? That's not a thing. Nobody's walking around. We're in our cars. And we have the stop and frisk for people who have cars, which is that you pull people over for minor violations. You can't read their license plate because of dirt, or their window tinting is too dark, or they failed to signal their lane change. And then you tell them, you smell marijuana, whether you do or not, and you can search their car. And then you can arrest them for failure to signal a lane change. And all of a sudden, you have this massive increase in arrest and jail for violations that, frankly, during the crime spike before, in the 70s, nobody would have worried about. Nobody was arresting people because their weeds were too tall. What a waste of taxpayer money, right? It takes two officers, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to book someone in jail for failure to signal. So when we talk about the need to change what we're doing, we talk about eliminating all those mental health calls. That's 15% of the 911 calls that these guys are chasing down. We talk about eliminating these completely unnecessary arrests that are viewed rightfully by Black and brown folk as just intimidation and harassment. We talk about eliminating or frankly, changing how we address marijuana in this community. That's also been a massive volume of activity on the part of police. You start carving back all of that, you don't need to add more cops. In fact, we may find when we dig in and analyze what our police are actually spending their time on, that we have too many now. There's not a magic number of police that make you safer. There was a guy named Bill Spellman, who used to be on the city council and is now over at the LBJ school. And he is a true statistical expert who has studied the question of whether of the marginal public safety benefit of adding police officers. And he was doing this a decade ago. A decade ago, Bill Spellman, having looked at all the data that exists in the world on this narrow topic, came to city council and said the marginal public safety benefit of adding one more officer right now is zero. There is no evidence that adding these 30 officers is going to make anyone safer. We've met the safety impact that officers driving around in patrol cars can actually have in the world. If we want to be safer, we actually have to do some other things. And that was Bill Spellman speaking to the council at a budget hearing about 10 years ago. We didn't stop adding police officers. You'd think we had if you listened to the APA, but we did not. They're also claiming that council, cut $40 million of policing 2 years ago. That is actually the savings to taxpayers that we all got by negotiating a better police contract with that self-same union. So yes, we are spending $40 million less than they wanted because they wanted too much. They wanted too much from taxpayers. And we have, the sky didn't fall. It's fine. I think that this is the moment where we start looking at what else we can do with less. And it's probably a lot.
And I'm sure that it is. And I remember the Bill Spellman stuff watching as an outsider. And when he started breaking down the 2 per 1,000 number, and I remember watching him do that. And I just remember it so clear as day, and being so impressed with how focused he was on actual data and analysis that it inspires me to this day.
Yep.
It really does. Kathy, we are way over on time, and we could probably do 10 times more on this. Thank you so much for joining the show. Your words, I think, are spot on in terms of the relative utility does not mean no officers.
Right.
Right? The relative utility is not an extreme in the other direction.
That's right.
It's that we need more. We need more things. They just are different things.
That's right.
And that's the work I'm committed to do as the new chair of the Public Safety Committee. Kathy, thank you so much for all your advocacy. give all my love to the advocates, and I hope that you and your family are staying safe during this pandemic.
All right. Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, I am sure that will not be the last conversation that we have on this topic. But Kathy is a great resource, and I'm so glad she made some time today after a very long council meeting. I know she was also watching. I want to bring up our musical guest. Very excited to have someone who's also having a moment and is also speaking out on the issues of the day. So I want to welcome to the show the amazing Jackie Vinson.
Hey, what's up?
Sorry to catch you. I caught you, Jackie.
Yeah, you got me, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the show. Just first, I want to ask you how you and your family are holding up during this pandemic and kind of how things are going generally.
Well, I have no idea how my family is doing because my days have been wall to wall. For the last 2 weeks, my days have been wall to wall, just like interviews and articles. It's been insane. The emotional labor is getting to be unbearable.
Emotional labor is real. The phrase emotional labor has been like my keyword, or it's been my phrase of the week. And I want you to know, just you and me in this conversation, that I'm keeping my head clear on that for this conversation. So let's talk about something different, and then we'll kind of go back a little bit. You graduated from Westwood High School, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I sure did.
I can't believe it. Do you still live in this part of town?
I live off Duval and Jollyville.
So you might be just outside the district, but you are still in this area. That's so cool. That's so cool.
For sure.
The kids coming out of Westwood are amazing, as are the kids that come out of McNeil and Vandergrift and our other high schools in this area. We're very fortunate to have some great schools in this area. Did you do music while you were at Westwood?
Well, they only have band, so no.
So no?
I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. and marching on a field 2 weeks before school starts.
That's what I did. I was a marching band guy. I did marching band all through high school and college. I was a tuba player, so that's okay. There's more than one way to do music. Well, tell me more about. I mean, you are on top of the game right now in terms of your music, and I've read, what you've put out and how you've been so intentional, elevating voices in the right way and participating in a way that was authentic, and even involving your family in it. Can you tell folks what that's been like, how that experience has been?
You mean involving them in what specifically?
Like the industry side of things, like
oh
stepping
yeah,
up.
For sure. It is definitely a family business because there's a lot of invisible trust fall type trust that you have to have in the people that you're working with, and that's why we all are so aware of all the horror stories of what happens to artists when they don't have a good support system, stuff like the 27 Club and stuff. The reason why is because when you have to trust somebody in a music career, you're trusting them with a lot. You're trusting them with your money. You're trusting them with your personal information. You're trusting them to speak on your behalf. It's huge because everything is public, So the reason why I like to involve my family is because they have no reason to take me down. There's no reason for someone I grew up with and shared a bed with for the first 10 years of my life. What good is it to take me down? We're better when we're all together,
Boy, you said it.
Yeah.
That is literally everything right now.
Yeah.
That is literally everything right now. You wrote an amazing piece that was in the paper, and we don't have to go into all the things, but I'm really curious, what the reaction has been. How have people reacted to? Because you wrote a piece on the thing that we're in the middle of, but I'm curious just kind of what the reaction's been.
The reaction has been probably 30% all lives matter. Don't be so divisive. Solidarity is better than choosing a side. Yeah. So 30% that. and then 70% like everyone's like, I'm 100% with you. Like 1 trillion billion
Yeah.
Jillion percent with you, and I can't believe that we didn't figure this out like 200 years ago. So that's most of it. So that's the good news. But there still is like enough of the other side of the argument, the really depressing side of the argument. There's like enough of it for it to be really heavy for the last 2 weeks.
I can't and I won't try to understand the emotional labor you're taking on. And I have had some pretty amazing, insightful conversations with my colleagues, especially Councilmember Harper Madison, on what it means to kind of be in that space in that moment. And
Yeah.
you know, I've got your back. I just want you to know that.
Well, the two things I want to say about it. Thing number one is it's this like the emotional labor is not that this stuff is hard to talk about. The emotional labor is that we've been talking about it forever, and this is the first time that anyone's ever wanted to listen. That's what's hard. That it's hard that I'm 30 years old, and this is the first time people have wanted to hear me out on this stuff. And it's and what I mean by people is people besides Black and brown people. So it's like really crazy. And what's so heavy about it is that like I'm exhausted from 30 years of trying to tell people about this stuff, and now everybody's listening. So if I don't say anything, then I feel like I'm not being responsible. Like it's my responsibility to say something. It's like, yeah, okay, boo-hoo, took people 30 years to care, 30 years of your life to care. But if you don't talk, you're just going to throw away and take for granted the fact that people care. So it's like a guilt for not wanting to talk about it or be about it every single day, all day. It's like a guilt, you know, like to not talk about it. And it's just really just like an overall like mind, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like overall, I'm like, I can't believe that I'm like I'm feeling guilty about being tired. It's like I don't even know how else to explain it. So and then that is coupled with this like really like crazy intense fear that people are just not going to care in 3 months, that we are just going to go back to the way things were. It's like a really, really, really intense fear because it's happened every moment, every other moment of my life. That's how it's been. People don't care after like a month. So, yeah, it's really heavy.
Well, I would just want to honor what you said, and I really hope people listen to what you're saying now, because it is too much to put problems caused by people that look like me on the shoulders of people that look like you.
Yeah, we're just trying to live in the problems and survive with the problems. That's all we're trying to just have a basic life.
That it's too much, and I want to get to the music, but you know, as you probably heard when I was talking with Kathy, I've stepped up my game on this issue specifically, and in a leadership way. I'll be chairing the Public Safety Committee coming into starting yesterday, and to have the trust of Councilmember Harper Madison and the Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Kassar and the rest of my colleagues on the council for this to be the chair of public safety right now.
That was cool. I mean, what happened yesterday was really exciting. It's just the first step and just the tip of the iceberg, but it's really exciting. Like I've never seen anything. I've never even seen this tip of the iceberg. The iceberg has always been completely submerged underwater. So the fact that we can even see the tip of an iceberg is cool.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of my folks, you know, there's a lot of bad rhetoric out there about what decisions the council is making, and the worst of it, just in that level, is that the decisions are final and that they were actually made. What we did yesterday was start the work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we did yesterday. We didn't finish it. We started it.
Like this isn't an effect yet. It's just that we just started having the conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is like what I can say is like sometimes it can be unclear on what I can do as a citizen. Like, is there going to be voting involved? I'm going to be really keeping my eyes peeled for that, because sometimes these elections or these decisions or these like propositions, sometimes they float by and I don't even know they happened. because like nobody publicized it or something. So that's a big thing. I want to know what the citizens are going to be involved in when it comes to the process of changing things around here.
Well, the only ask I will make of you is when white people come to you, send them to me.
Okay, you got it. You know, that helps a lot, man. So suddenly
I'll work on it. Yeah, I'll work on it.
Hell yeah,
Jackie.
Suddenly I feel lighter.
I love it. I love it. You've been an absolute pleasure on the show. I cannot wait to hear what you have prepared to share your music with us today. So why don't you take it away?
All right. The song is called Cover My Eyes. There we go.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing.
Thanks.
That was so amazing, Jackie. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your music, and willing to burden whatever emotional labor I laid on you today
No worries,
to
man.
talk to my folks.
Like I said, it's complicated. I appreciate having the opportunity and the platform to talk about this stuff. I just hope that we keep talking about it for literally the rest of our lives.
Well, that's the commitment I'm making to you.
Great.
And the work that I'm doing.
Great. Thank
And
you so much.
congratulations on your Guitar Girl cover.
Oh yeah.
That is super
They
cool.
chose
I
the
don't have
perfect picture.
Yeah, I don't have the graphic in front of me, but I encourage everyone, Google it. It's super cool. And for you to be a D6er, well, even if you just live on the other side of the line, we're
I'm right on
claiming
the
you.
border, man.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Jackie.
All right. Thanks so much.
Damn, that was good. Let me get the name off here. Well, I thought, when we started this show, I was like, well, I got 2 guests. We've been super busy this week with all the things. I thought, well, it'll be fine. We'll do a shorter show with only 2 guests. 50 minutes later. There's big stuff happening, y'all. There really is. There's big stuff, and it's the kind of stuff that doesn't have to be partisan, and it doesn't have to be cantankerous. It's really important work, and I think to hear Jackie express what it means to be her in this moment, I really want, and I hope everybody thinks about that. Getting to work so closely with some of my council colleagues, and especially Councilmember Harper Madison, whose own experience is it covers all corners of the city, including in District 6. It just shows how important it is for us to support and elevate the voices of folks who, as Jackie said, whose voices just haven't been heard. Some of us and our voices are always heard, and we need to share the love. We need to share the love, and we need to keep listening. I put a blog post up on my official City Hall website, atxd6.org, atxd6.org, that goes into additional detail. Kathy did a great job, but additional detail on what the council is contemplating with the items we voted on last night. I encourage you to go check it out and share it with your friends. And I want to bring up just this link. We are on the campaign trail. We have opponents. They are not agreeing with much of the things that I talk about, and so that's something to note. But if you want to see this work continue, if you want to see my work continue, and you want to see this guy, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, as we navigate these difficult waters, you know what to do. I need your support, and I hope you'll make your donations at the link below, and encourage all of your friends to go to jimmyflanagan.com and sign up if you want to help me do the work. So we got to talk to our neighbors. We got to talk to our friends. And there just really is a way to do it. There really is. And to my conservative friends, there's a way to do it that actually speaks to small government fiscal conservatism. We're talking about shrinking a blunt instrument and targeting the tools of government specific to the community's needs. How could we not be excited about that work? And I hope you all will join me in it. You can sign up at jimmyflanagan.com, read what I had to say on atxd6.org, and share this show. Share it on Facebook, share it on YouTube, share it everywhere you can. This is important work. And to all the folks who are standing over my shoulder, I'm still listening. Please keep talking. Please keep communicating. And please keep advocating. And everybody, we got an election coming up. Not just mine. We got one coming up first. There's a runoff that happens in July. Please be ready to vote in that runoff election. Do your research. We'll talk a little bit about that in another show. Do the vote by mail stuff. There's just a lot. There's a lot going on. Please keep yourself safe. Please take this pandemic seriously, and please protect each other in this community in all the ways that means. Thank you all for watching the show today, and have a good weekend.